what is Mintra? What makes it different than the other marketplaces? What is the what inspired you to make it? All that stuff.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, if we want to go chronologically, what inspired me to make it was actually a Richard Hart stream where he was talking about the vertical integration of the PulseChain ecosystem and of his ecosystem, which is like you want for our ecosystem, right? I shouldn't call it his, I should call it ours because it's really everyone's. You have the store of value, right? You have Hex, you have the consensus network, PulseChain, you have decentralized exchange, PulseX is making a wallet. Other community members are making wallets too. What else do you need? He mentioned NFT marketplaces at the bottom of his list. So I was like, like if it's at the bottom of his list and all this other stuff is going to take so much time, like, bro, PulseChain isn't out yet. The MetaMask replacement, the wallet, isn't, it's being worked on, but no real announcements or marketing or anything for that yet, or even a name. So like these things take time, and I saw that like a year ago, and yeah, it's been almost a year since I had the idea, and I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna really just sit around and wait for Pulse. I mean, I am doing that like everyone else, but I saw the opportunity to, as a community member of Hex, of PulseChain, PulseX, take a little bit of market share away from these bigger players, right? Potentially. If OpenSea decides to come over to PulseChain, like, of course they're going to dominate, but if they don't, that leaves a huge hole, right? A huge opportunity to your question, like what makes Mintra different? Well, when the PulseChain snapshot occurs, or the hard fork, because it's no longer an injection of state into BSC, now like a fork, now it's an actual literal fork of ETH2. So not snapshot. So fork.
Important distinction.
Once the fork happens, anyone who held not only ERC20s, but ERC 721s or 1155s, which are NFTs, the two most common standards for them, they'll also be copied over. And so you need a place, or you really, really want a place to be able to play with those, to list those, to trade them, so to speak, right? Like PulseX will enable the ERC20 trading. That's awesome, but who's going to enable the NFT trading, the swapping, the auctions, the transfers? Even like, I don't think MetaMask allows transfers of 1155s, but I'm not sure.
Interesting. The only place I know is the app.alcasa.pro. You can transfer the Watts NFTs and stuff, which I thought was pretty cool. I'm like, whoa. But other than that, cool. I don't know.
So what makes it different? I mean, lower fees in OpenSea. It has I've started trying to rebrand this tokenomics idea as swap and burn, right? So it has swap and burn tokenomics, where fee sharing tokenomics similar to LooksRare. So it takes elements from PulseX, from LooksRare, and even from some other protocols, some stuff that I haven't really announced publicly yet, but will be really fun. I think the community will go nuts. Once I have like two nice little things I could drop at any given point in time, but like I told you off stream, I like things to be done before. Like some things are being done, but they're not completed. And there's a lot to do, man. Like, I empathize with the PulseChain development team, because even just a marketplace, man, is way harder than you originally just think it might be. It's way harder.
What are some of the things that when you're going through it, you thought, oh, this is going to be easy, and your devs were like, actually,
Okay, so you know how you can just like view an NFT in your wallet?
Mm-hmm.
You should be able to do that, right? That's not that easy. That's actually kind of hard. To be able to just connect your MetaMask and be like, all right, what NFTs do I own right now? Like, that is not the easiest thing in the world.
It sounds easy, but yeah,
it sounds easy, but it's actually really technical. And if these other guys can solve it, these other competitors, like, kudos. And I mean, there's a bunch of stuff we're finding that's like, if the competitors with these other NFT marketplaces can figure out these things we're doing, then they are real competition. But if not, then spoofing, spamming, all that stuff, like just literally DDoSing their platform won't be too hard if they don't do certain things right. Yeah.
Well, let's say the Pulse chain launched mid-May this year. It didn't, but let's say it did,
Sure.
and yeah, and Mintra, right on the forefront. Maybe you're ready to go. Well, I guess we'll get into it, but like,
This is-
what would be different from if launching Mintra on Pulse chain in mid-May versus launching in January? Maybe it comes in January, maybe it doesn't. But let's say that's the timeline. What has changed between that, and were you
Lot.
grateful? You're like, oh, I
Yeah.
want a Pulse chain to come as much as anyone else, but also, ooh, I like this extra time. Like, how'd you feel about that?
The extra time is really nice. I'm not gonna lie, because there are a bunch of features that you want to build. Sorry, I just saw the hex price out of the corner of my eye. Um,
1 penny. No.
no, I'm just mega dump. The 2.3 pennies. A new low. Is everything
The FUD,
capitulating?
the FUD is working. We're getting to
Jesus.
the bottom.
Anyways, the time is really nice because there are a lot of things you envision for your project and a lot of challenges you don't envision that come along the way and get in the way of things. And just a lot of testing needs to be done too, right? It's just like okay, I'll say one thing. Mint staking is going to get like way cooler than it has been because previously you just staked your token and you get your pulse rewards. Now it's actually going to be way cooler. Um, what else is going to be cooler? Just something as simple as being able to see which NFTs come from where, like being able to distinguish between your Ethereum Bored Ape and your forked over Bored Ape, and being able to see them both via the same kind of wallet interface. But get focused better via the same wallet interface, and I don't know, man, just a lot of little things. Like I could get into it.
Well, is there, maybe at mid-May or like this past summer, you were like, okay,
Sure.
here's the stuff that's done, here's the stuff we're ready to launch with, and here's the nice to haves if we had more time. Were there anything where you're like, whoa, this is I can't believe we're going to get to do this because we have more time now? Is there anything you can talk about with that?
We've haven't been ready to launch per se. Like there's still a lot to be done. So if PulseChain had launched in mid-May, Mintra would not have launched alongside with it. Just being real, like it's taken time because there are things that we added along the way. Now that we realized we had more time, but at the time back in mid-May, we weren't in a rush to launch or anything. Like we were still working on things. So one thing I will say is testnet v3. There's a reason, the Mintra Twitter account tweeted like, "Oh, testnet v3 will be fun," because that's the first real place that you're like, okay, this is closest to mainnet as probably as possible that we're gonna get, and at the same time, it's a nice clean slate to deploy not only your token and your new revamped staking app, but also the marketplace, and so that it can all finally tie together and actually be tested and be like, here, community, go try to break this. Which at that point I think will be pretty solid, knowing that it'll be robust and resilient to like traffic and transactions and.
Is there so yeah, I think a lot of people are excited to play with it, and
Oh yeah.
just the ability to so we will have the ability to view those monkey JPEGs inside the wallet. That's figured out.
I mean, yes, not only your monkey JPEGs, but actual other NFTs that represent on-chain stuff, which those are my favorite NFTs, like Uniswap, V3, liquidity provider NFTs, or even HSIs, right, encapsulated stakes, or even yield-bearing NFTs like the Icosa one. Like it's all interesting stuff, and I particularly like those more because they represent things on chain, like they give you tokens or they represent the stake of these tokens, or it's not trying to
What
represent something in the real world. Yeah.
what is the appropriate name for that too? Yeah, I know the difference between the representing art in the real world versus but like what would you even call the Watts NFTs, the things like that? Yeah, HSIs, are they? I've been calling them DeFi NFTs, but is there even like a category for them now?
um I don't know, man, like yield bearing NFTs.
NFTs.
Some of these are in a way derivatives, not really, kind of, sort of, but they don't have to be. yield bearing or derivatives to kind of play that role. I mean, or do they? I don't know. I guess we'll get a cool name for them in the future. But I think if someone asks me what I think the future of NFTs is, it's something more in along that flavor than what it was in this previous cycle, like profile pictures. So regardless of what NFTs mean to people, to the culture, to crypto, having a place to be able to do things with them, I think is super important. And that's why I'm
And
bullish on what we're building. Yeah.
is that, how do you see, I mean, will it just be collectible art? Will it be yield bearing asset? Like, are there other categories of things for NFTs where they'll actually turn into more of a, like, not a, not a legit marketplace, but like a marketplace where you're not going to pay $1 million and then sell for 500 later on. You're like, okay, I'm going to buy this and it's going to actually be okay, other than yield bearing assets we've seen.
I mean, domain names, we've seen the ENS stuff kind of pop off. The .eth, you know how you have your, you go on Etherscan, you can look up someone .eth, you see the registrant, the controller, which is like who registered the domain, who actually controls it right now, like what Ethereum address it points to. So things like that I think are pretty cool because again, they just represent things on chain. Like this NFT represents this address, this string, which means something to people on chain. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I think once you start, I think NFTs make a lot of sense in a high throughput world where you actually have what Ethereum claims it wants to have, like 100,000 transactions per second or whatever after, what is it, the surge, the purge, the verge, and all of those,
Yeah.
all those milestones. When they actually hit that really, really high throughput that can sustain games, for example, then you could be like, okay, well, an ERC 1155 might really work for in-game items like that broadsword that you have 10,000 of, but you don't want more circulating in the game. You make that an 1155, supply 10,000 and token ID, 20, and then the entire game is just the collection of these. And then you have the high throughput kind of like transactions going on, and it's all censorship resistant. Then that'd be cool. I don't think anyone's trying to censor your World of Warcraft or League of Legends or Overwatch transactions, but like to have the
Well,
option is kind of cool.
maybe, what do you think we get to, like exclusive events, property rights, like other things that may be more valuable to try to censor? Like, you think we eventually get there with Ethereum
Yeah,
improvements server
like
wise?
it would really be an interesting world if you could take your in-game assets from any game and then transact them on the same chain. I feel like that's really far out. Like, let's just say, for example, I don't know, name a popular video game right now. I'm honestly not too deep in that space.
I do not play video games. I'm a
Let's just say
terrible person to
GTA,
ask.
right? GTA, you get some like sick car, and you can transfer it to your Ethereum wallet or something as an ERC 721 from the game, and then you could trade it on uh, an open market. That's kind of interesting because then you have, but see, game companies might not like that in the short term, just because it kind of becomes a leak, an economic leak, versus skins now. You just pump money into their ecosystem and it can't leave if you buy a skin in a game right now. But
Right.
in this world that I'm describing, it could leave. It could come back in bigger amounts though if you open the gates. It really brings meritocracy to like the economics of games at that point. Like, is the user getting
Wow.
value when they pump in money? It makes the whole gaming industry like different. Mm, but again, I think it's really early. I think it's way too early for that stuff to play out.
What do you think too? It just kind of reminds me of how a lot of the traditional or physical businesses and companies, they're turning into internet companies, like, Redfin and Zillow. They're like, oh, we're just a bunch of real estate,
Mm.
people, agents, things like that, but it's all on a website. So are we a technology company? Are we a real estate company? Do you think in
Yeah,
the future that, like, there'll be the technology companies and stuff, they'll be, oh, are you a crypto company or are you a technology company? Like, is that like the next evolution?
that's interesting. Yeah, mm, I think if crypto becomes a critical part of most companies' infrastructure, which it very well could become, then yeah, it'll just be common for every company to have their own crypto infrastructure, whether that be a marketplace or a token or a DAO or whatever. Similar to websites, because yeah, if you have a website now, you're not an internet company, you're not a tech company just because you have a website. You just use it as
Right.
part of distribution or part of marketing or you know.
But if your engineering org grows larger than your agent's org, that's when it gets like, interesting. I don't know. I could see too, like with Amazon, like with EC2, they're like, all right, maybe in 5 years, we'll just nodes as a service. Oh, you want to build a new blockchain? You want to do a new
Yeah,
Web3 thing? Just pay us in crypto, and we'll set it
yeah,
up and spin everything up for you, and it's all good. I could see that.
interesting. Yeah, no, they're already. I mean, Amazon's dominating that space for sure. The
Well, they already have blockchain for a service in a lot of the cloud. I mean, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google too. But like being able to, spin up PulseChain nodes, just be like, yeah, just tell us what chain you want to support, and we'll spin it up for you, and we'll run it for you.
Is it Alex from Hedron spinning up a data center? I saw on his
Yeah,
Instagram.
spinning up more than an instance. He's spinning up a whole data center. Yeah, it's
Yeah, no, I
amazing.
like that. I might want to use that actually. That's
That
a
guy,
really
he's
good idea.
making. If you want an example of how to make an impact in the community, buy a freaking data center. Like
It's true. It's
he's
true. They'll
setting the
help.
bar pretty high right now. Like, whoa.
Yeah,
Got a couple of Mentor questions too. Let me
go for
find
it.
them.
Hit me.
Uh, Well, where's the burn question? I thought that was a burn question here.
A burn question. Oh, I saw that in your chat. Someone said explain the swap and burn.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so it's very similar to PulseX. Very, very similar. So the idea is you have the Mintra marketplace, and any successful transaction that goes through gets hit with a 2.25% fee to the seller. By the way, the buyer doesn't pay the fee, which is really nice. I don't know if that's been made public yet, but that's a fun little piece of information. So the
Yeah,
2.25% seller fee goes to a fee 2 address, you could call it. And then that fee 2 address distributes to 3 different addresses. One is just a publicly viewable address. One is the yield address for mint stakers. And one is the swap and burn address. And so what the swap and burn address does, now that it's holding some pulse from marketplace fees, it becomes a public function where no, there exists a public function where a user can go in and just hit, swap and burn, and this contract will use that pulse to buy up on the pulse mint pair on PulseX. It'll go into that pool, pump in the PLS, get some mint out of it. So that's the swap. It's an effectively like a market buy of mint, and then it goes and burns that mint, taking it off the market forever. So similar to
nice.
PulseX, right? Marketplace fee volume, a small fraction of that goes to buy up the token and burn it. I believe PulseX buy and burn buys across multiple pools though, because the fee is denominated in the actual tokens in the pair that's being traded. So if a user is trading PulseX, the fees are denominated in PulseX, and Pulse. If the user is trading a hex hedron pair on PulseX, then the fees are denominated in hex hedron and always a little bit of Pulse. And so all of that is going to buy PulseX. But with Mintra, it's literally just one pool. Yeah, just the Pulse.
So that's a pretty cool pumpamentals. It just got me thinking too. Are there new pumpamentals that have been in the works, or like what? I guess what are the people are trying to ration, or not ration, or trying to think about Mentra as far as like the tokenomics and stuff go? Like what
Yeah.
are like some of the pumpamentals that are inherent and have been built in?
So that's one, right? Swap and burn is pretty cool because if you're buying tokens and then burning them, it means permanent buy pressure. They can't be sold if they don't exist anymore.
Mhm.
I mean, other than that, uh, that's the biggest one in my opinion. The fact that it can be staked is another huge one, right? The users can stake it, therefore reducing sell pressure on the market in return for Pulse from that V2 address that I mentioned. Right, they get a fraction of
Gotcha.
that as well. So you could just take your mint, stake it, and just get Pulse forever. I as long as there's marketplace volume. The way I see it is like, imagine if you could accumulate ETH in the early days. Imagine if ETH had launched with a bunch of projects built on it from the start, 2015, with a Uniswap and OpenSea, etc. A Looks Rare. I'll use as an example because users could stake Looks to get ETH. Imagine accumulating that back in the day, like at $1 Ethereum, $2 Ethereum, $10 Ethereum. If you had just held your passive ETH, like it'd probably be worth way more than the token that was used to stake it, or even the same amount. It might match it. Who knows, right? But if the underlying yield is pumping and it's different than the token being staked, then there's kind of like, I don't know. There's this cool. That's a cool market dynamic. It's going to play out. I think it'll be cool to watch play
out. Chance asks, how does Roberto feel about Power City's Pixel City NFT platform?
How do I feel about it? I don't know what they're doing. What are they doing? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't know. I know a lot of people like it, but I don't know how to compare, Mintra versus Pixel City versus maybe there's one or two other ones. Like, I guess in your mind, let's reframe the question. Like, what sets Mentra apart, and like what I guess maybe the hard to do stuff too. Like what have y'all done that's very hard that you don't think is it will give you like a leg up on the other platforms when they launch?
Yeah. Again, something as simple as integrating the wallet experience into the platform, being able to see which ERC 721s you own, which 1155s you own on both chains, Ethereum and Pulse, having basically a built-in, I really find, I'll say it, basically having the tools of a built-in block explorer, man. Like,
ooh.
That's really what you need to be able to handle everything we want to do. And so it'll be a really nice, almost NFT-centric block explorer where you go in and, kind of similar to OpenSea, where you go in and you can type an address and see what NFT someone owns and the history behind them, right? The NFT life cycle is what my devs like to call it. You want to see everything. You want to know everything from when it was created to any auctions it's gone through, sales it's gone through, transfers. Yeah, so you need the tooling for that. And what else sets it apart from these competitors? Security, honestly, like we take security very seriously. So we're not ready. You know what I mean? Like we took a lot of time looking at the game theory of the auction contracts, for example. If you want to list an NFT just for auction, there are a lot of things that go into it, right? Like what are the rules to the auction? Is there a global floor price? Is there a bid increment that you want to introduce where, users can't just add 0.00001 pulse to the previous bid and just outbid someone? Like little edge cases. So you have to think of the game theory to avoid bid spoofing. So if someone wants to spoof your platform with just fake bids, how do you prevent that? There are ways to prevent that, or just spamming up your marketplace. Like a lot of things, man, that had to be thought up to make sure this place doesn't just get locked down by a malicious spammer, hacker, someone who can build bots really well. And, some of our devs can build bots really well. So at some point, we will probably try to attack our own marketplace, so to speak, to see if we can handle it. So I think security is going to be huge. I think the UX and the tooling we have that will enable the exploration, I guess, of NFTs via kind of a NFT centric. I don't even want to call it a block explorer. It's like it makes Mintra a whole ecosystem. It's a marketplace, kind of a wallet, kind of an explorer, all at the same time. But no, I think once people play with it on Testnet, on Testnet V3, they'll really be able to get a close idea of what it's going to be on mainnet, because in the same light that you want the chain itself to be as close as it will be, I think most projects that will launch on PulseChain should launch their like final beta on V3 testnet. It would make the most sense.
for market
Yeah.
advantage and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You want to see how it works, how it will work in the real world, as close as possible as you can.
Well, just on the NFT Explorer thing, have you thought about doing any kind of like social features where you can view NFTs, maybe you can tag them, and like you can have like communities and groups and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. That's when you get into the whole, like you said it, the social aspect.
Mm.
The whole I hate to use the word, but the whole metaverse aspect.
Mm.
That's when you get into like, okay, let's make this a way bigger experience. So where now you have in-app messaging, and you have um, whatever you just mentioned. I kind of just blanked on it, but that's
Well,
when you
tagging communities, things like that.
tagging, exactly, hashtags and threads. That's when you get into. I mean, we've thought about it. There will definitely be features like that. Like you can like an NFT, you can favorite it. That's a social feature. We've thought about certain social features. There's one in particular that I really like, which I don't know if I want to say right now, but it's yeah, yeah. I don't think I want to share it because it's
All
really
right,
cool. I
all
know
right.
it would put a leg up, and it wouldn't just attempt to be a social media app from the get go, but rather just have one cool feature, one cool social feature. Less is more
I think
sometimes.
I think that'd be cool. Yeah, I'm definitely down for like the minimalist side. I
Yeah,
think
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but just the game theory of like the different communities and being able to like stuff and tag things like that seems like the a way to get like economies of scale, like all the mental models around like just building things and them taking on a life of their own, and like other communities like, oh, we're gonna build on Mentra, stuff like that. I think that's very encouraging to have those type of features just for that, if nothing else. Mentra V2 maybe.
I
Is there a
mean,
Mentra?
yeah.
Go.
Sorry, go ahead. Is there a stack
I was
checker?
say
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Is
Yes.
there? You want to drop a URL in the private chat and I'll post it, or unless you can.
Yes. It's lead.mintra.info.
Okay, I'll post that.
Let me triple check. Yep, there it is.
What else we got? Just a bunch of any more Mentor questions, chat. We have a lot of hex dumping chat. Oh, here's one.
Oh, funny.
Um, Dustin Olson, how soon will Mentor launch after PulseChain launches?
I don't know. I don't know because I don't know when PulseChain is going to launch. And we're definitely going to launch, like I said, on V3 testnet first. I mean, there's still stuff to be done, but I think if testnet V3 launches before the end of the year, I think we can launch alongside with it relatively soon after. And I'm talking V3 testnet. And then from there, we definitely still need audits. Our contracts are almost done. They're close. They're really, 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 really close. So at that point, audits become feasible, and that can be done either before, during, or after testnet, like community testing. So because it's interesting, you really only hit up testnet when you think you have something solid and you're confident in what you have. And at the same time, you only hit up the auditors once you feel solid and confident in what you have. So I feel like you can attack them twice at the same time.
Right.
You might save time that way too. So